There is a Boba Fett TV show that is confirmed by Bespin Bulletin to begin shooting very, very soon. I want to give my thoughts on the Boba Fett television show, which is, I guess, going to be a spin-off of the events of The Mandalorian Episode 9 that aired a couple weeks ago, featuring the return of Boba Fett, albeit in cameo form. Now, the reason as to why this news is exciting, but also not that exciting. I'm going to quell my excitement here, and I'm going to tell you why. As much as I love the idea of a Boba Fett series, of his sort of adventures, maybe post Return of the Jedi, telling how he got to that mountain where he was at on Tatooine, how he escaped the Sarlacc, how he lost his armor, all of that sounds good. And obviously Boba Fett's popular, so you want to capitalize on that. And I also love these Star Wars stories that aren't about the Jedi, like The Mandalorian, for example. And I love sort of the Tales of Mos Eisley type of stories, you know, where you explore like the underbelly of the gangster world of Star Wars. You know, anything involving the Hutts and the Yu Zhang Vong. Like, I love that side of Star Wars. I've always been into that side of Star Wars. Ever since I first saw Jabba the Hutt in Return of the Jedi, it's always fascinated me, but the movies never really talk about it too much. You know, we know who the Hutts are. We know about, well, really Solo. I feel like Solo really explored this a little bit more, and I was happy with that. But the movies focus on the Jedi, of course, and the Skywalkers. But, you know, I always wanted that. But I have concerns here. Number one, I'm worried that we're not going to see Boba Fett again for the remainder of The Mandalorian Season 2. And I complained about that recently in my review because I don't want Disney to introduce these characters and just have them pop up in one episode and then say, hey, do you love Boba Fett? Well, guess what? If you want to read more about his adventures, you got to get this comic book, this novel, play this game. No, like, I'm so tired of that. I am so tired of Disney making us buy extra shit to tell their story. You know, the sequel trilogy was plagued with this. We had Aftermath books and, you know, the comics about Kylo Ren and what really happened in Jedi Temple. Like, all this stuff that they didn't plan out. They didn't fit it into the movies. So they went ahead and just made it so that we had to get these books. I don't like that. I honestly don't like that. And, you know, I hope that that's not the case. I hope that Boba Fett does become maybe one of Mando's rivals in The Mandalorian Season 2, maybe beyond that, and that the Boba Fett show is short and is about how he got there. You know, that would be cool. Just basically start at Return of the Jedi and then go from there, like how he escaped. That would be fantastic. But also, here's the big question. I want y'all to really think about this for a minute, because I have a feeling that some of you guys are not going to understand what I'm saying until you think about it. Because naturally, Star Wars fans are going to say, okay, great, no, we want to see a Boba Fett show, especially if Favreau and Filoni are involved, because it's going to be the real gutter shit that we love, right? It's going to be like a Western. I respect that and I agree. But I do have a concern. Boba Fett is a character that I think got popular because of his mystery. You know, we saw very little of him in Empire Strikes Back and in Return of the Jedi, and then we read about him in books, you know, way back in the old EU era. And then when Episode 2 came out, I remember being excited, me and my friends, because we're seeing Jango Fett, Boba Fett's father, and then we find out that Boba Fett's a clone that grows faster and whatnot, and, you know, it's kind of a cool little introduction to Boba Fett, even though he's not really like, you know, Boba Fett yet. You know, it's like just a tie-in with, you know, the original trilogy. Some would say a forced tie-in, but it does make sense. And remember, we didn't even know that the clones were offspring of the Fetts. We didn't know that. Like, before Episode 2, we knew very little about the Clone Wars. Lucas didn't say anything about them except for a brief mention in A New Hope. So when that movie came out back in 2002, you know, it opened up the explanation of how the Fetts were really in the bigger picture of the galaxy and were heavily involved in the downfall of the Jedi. Whether directly or indirectly, Boba Fett was, or Jango Fett was, excuse me. Boba Fett works as a mystery character. Boba Fett works as a character that we don't always see. He doesn't really talk that much. He's that silent but violent type of guy. He's an enforcer, and enforcer characters always get popular because of the mystery aspect. And I feel like if we find out too much about Boba Fett, if we find out too much about his backstory, it might sort of kill the mystique of the character. Now, understand, I was worried about this happening in Mandalorian, because in Mandalorian, I wasn't expecting us to find out his backstory until later seasons. But we found out in season 1, and it worked. It actually worked. So they were able to retain the mystique of the character while still keeping him popular and keeping him cool. So with Boba Fett, they could do it. But I still, when it comes to him being sort of a villain, if he's even still a villain, he may just be an anti-hero, or he may just be his own thing. He might not be aligned with the First Order or aligned with the Hutts anymore. Probably not. He's probably his own guy. It could be a cool little, like, sort of vigilante story. But again, I feel like I'm concerned they're going to overexpose the character. So I feel like if they do a Boba Fett TV show starring Temuera Morrison, which would be he has to be in it, right? Boy, Temuera Morrison's gotten paychecks from Star Wars for 18 years straight, hasn't he? He does all the voices in the freaking Clone Wars cartoon show. Came back for Rebels to voice Rex and other clones. Freaking does dub work for them for all the video games. Like, Temuera Morrison has probably gotten more consistent paychecks as a voiceover actor than anybody involved with Star Wars. Right? Think about that. Like, he might not be getting checks the size of Mark Hamill or Harrison Ford, but he's definitely getting paid. You know, his whole career, because he played Jango Fett in one movie, his whole career has, I mean, he already had a good career, but it's sort of like, you know, became solidified. I don't think he ever has to worry about work ever again. Just dub some Jango Fett lines or some clone lines and you're good for the rest of your career. And I'm happy for him. Imagine if you had that gig. You get to play clones and Fetts for the rest of your life. That's cool. I just wanted to make that point. But anyways, Boba Fett, if they're going to do a Boba Fett TV series, which I guess they are going to be doing now, based on what Bespin Bulletin said, what's been coming out now, it needs to be short. This series cannot be more than one season, in my opinion. In my opinion. Unless Boba Fett gets really popular and they come back later, I would only book it for one season and tell the story of him from Jedi to Mandalorian. That should be the way the series works. Him going on his own adventures, I feel like might be too similar to Mandalorian. You know, as far as tone, as far as aesthetics, as far as like the character. He may be too similar to Mandalorian, and it might not be a good idea to have two characters running around who are that similar. You know what I mean? So I think the best thing to do is to tell his stories, keep it short. Please don't make us buy more comic books, like I said before. Don't do that. I can't stand when they do that. You know, that should be for extra backstory on characters, not for like entire main adventures that we have to know. Then again, this could be extra backstory for Boba Fett, right? But I think most of us want to see Boba Fett on the screen, on Disney Plus. Maybe not on the big screen, but, you know, on Mando. I think most of us want to see that. But if they do it, though, I think the best course of action is to keep it short, keep it sweet, maybe 6 episodes, miniseries, hour each. That should be enough to tell a story. Maybe 8 episodes, and leave it at that. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments, and let me know if you understand what I'm saying about the mystique of the character. I'm not saying I'm 100% for that, or that it will happen. I'm just saying that there's a problem where it could happen. So let me know. I'll talk to you soon.